Well, hello there. My name is sometimes Heather and I make dresses. A while back, last May I think, we went to a book launching party. It was a themed party and guests were encouraged to embrace the 90s. I don't do well with themed parties, so I panicked. I could have worn a spaghetti strap dress over a mesh top and paired it with vintage accessories from the 90s, but instead I chose to make a new dress. As an added challenge, I decided to see how fast I could sew said dress. I started at 12:40 by pouring myself another cup of coffee and pulling out materials from my stash. At this point, I also started a timer on my phone. I picked out a black viscose jersey and a pair of sparkly tights that are quite obviously designed for someone whose legs are approximately 2 meters long. Having been around during the 90s, I chose to believe that raglan sleeves were a thing back then. I pulled out my trusted pattern and set to work. Forcing a t-shirt pattern to a raglan shape is relatively easy. All you really need is to draw a line from arm side to collar and fold. In a raglan style, front and back pieces are almost similar. The back piece is often a bit longer, but the shape of the raglan seam itself is the same. I folded both my pattern pieces, placed them onto my fabric and shaped the hem. I did this by drawing a straight line from waist to hem. This way I could use all of the width I had. I also shaped the back in order to make the dress fit perfectly at the waist. I decided to cut the sleeves after assembling my dress. As I started sewing, I had spent almost 40 minutes patterning and cutting my dress. I used my trusted order of sewing. Back seams, sides, shoulder. But a raglan sleeve dress has no shoulder seams. After searching through 3 seams, I returned to cutting. As mentioned, I chose to use tights for the sleeves. I tried these on once and found them way too long and also a bit fragile. The sparkle pleased me, so I repurposed the tights. I used 1 leg for each sleeve. I copied the raglan shape from a front piece and cut away. I chopped the legs to length and found I had quite a bit of extra. I'll use that for another project. As the sleeves were already in tube form, I could go right ahead and attach them to my dress. Setting a raglan sleeve is easier than setting a regular one. All you need is to match upper edges and possible seams with right side spacing and sew away. This task took less than 15 minutes. Since the day was still young, I decided to give my sleeves cuffs. I cut 2 strips from the leftover viscose jersey, folded them, sewed through the short edges, turned them out and slapped them onto the sleeves. Easy process, huge difference. Cuffs serve to give the sleeves a finished look. A rolled edge would have worked fine, but this is more professional. I used a similar method for the neckline, only the strip of fabric was much narrower. The hem I finished with a bit of lace. After 1 hour and 50 minutes, my dress was pretty much done. All I needed was to top stitch the hem's lace down. I wore the dress to the party and thoroughly enjoyed it. My dress was comfortable and unnoticeable, just like I'd hoped. The book saw daylight, I got to hide in the shadows, and all was well. After the party, I wore the dress a couple of times and found it bland. It's cute, yes, and made to measure, but it lacks detail, character, flair, and pizzazz. To save the dress from a dreadful life in the closet, I chose to alter it. My first instinct was to cut the hem shorter and sew the extra bit on a bit higher to create a 2-layer ruffle. As I have recently used this type of detail in another dress, I discarded this idea. Instead, I toyed around with tulle and lace and a bit of pretty elastic. I thought I might sew channels to the hem and use those to hitch up the front hem. I actually pinned channels onto the hem, sat at my sewing machine, prepared to sew and said, well, maybe no. Sewn-on channels don't look very nice on their own, and I wanted the hem to have variety. With channels, I'd only have one option, to wear the dress gathered. If I used eyelets instead, things would be much more interesting. I laid my dress down and marked out my center front. I then measured out 2 lines along which I would make holes. After a bit of marking and measuring, I had determined where to punch. Using metal eyelets seemed like an inviting idea. They're quick and easy, but viscose jersey is stretchy and rather light. It wouldn't be able to support the weight of a metal eyelet. I did want some support to my fabric. I decided to use one eyelet part only. I cut small squares out of my fabric, punched holes in them, and sandwiched them with the metal rings. I then hand-stitched the whole thing together. I'll make a video about this entire process later, so you'll get a better view of how to do this. After about an hour, I had 10 tidy hand-sewn eyelets. I can use them to gather the hem in various ways, or even push a colorful ribbon through while leaving the hem flat. The options are nearly unlimited, though the alteration wasn't a drastic one. I really like the way my hem gathers. My fabric is light and it drapes beautifully. I've pulled the hem rather high, and now it lets me showcase a pretty underskirt. And it allows me to imagine my legs look longer. And it looks nice with a half bust. Though the transformation wasn't a drastic one, it turned the interest from drab to something I really want to wear. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Next time, I thought I might show you the dress with the ruffles. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.